every day I wake up with two things in mind. Uh, how artists and songwriters can make more money, and how do fans and artists connect?
Hmm.
Fame and fortune. That's what I wake up every day in pursuit of trying to make it, a world where there's more artists and songwriters that are capable of feeding their families, and a world where fans are excited about joining a community of people that love an artist and their music. I'm also in hot pursuit of not just breaking music or song, but breaking a artist's career.
What's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business, the book. Third edition, out now everywhere, all formats, audiobook, ebook, hardcover, however you like books, you can find it. Today, my guest is the legendary Lyor Cohen. He has been in the industry for decades, and most famously, he helped lead Def Jam recordings, working with artists like Jay-Z and Ja Rule and Ludacris, selling to Universal, then creating Island Def Jam, working with countless artists at all levels, but creating hit after hit after hit. And then he went to be the chairman and CEO of recorded music for Warner Music Group and worked with the Killers. And then he created 300, co-founded 300 Entertainment, signing artists and working with artists like Fetty Wap and Young Thug. And then in 2016, he went over to YouTube as the global head of music at YouTube. And that's where he has been for the last 9 years or so. YouTube is coming up on its 20th anniversary. And so today, Lyor and I talk everything. We talk about artist development. We talk about the state of the music industry. We talk about the digital revolution and how the music industry handled that. Early on, he was intimately involved with all of that, working at Warner Music Group when Spotify launched and when YouTube launched. And he most famously made a lot of early deals with YouTube when everyone was so afraid of working with YouTube. Lyor kind of spearheaded a lot of these deals at Warner directly with YouTube and saw the promise of it. Now he has been a leader and an innovator in the industry ever since. And that's what he talks about. I opened up our conversation talking about the historically contentious relationship with the tech industry that the music industry has had. And he pushes back right away. This was a very animated conversation. He pretty much pushed back on every single question and premise that I had, which I love. I love the conversations where we can go deep and we can go in. So this is definitely one of these conversations where we're covering kind of the macro industry and we're zoomed out where it's heading, where it's been, and conceptually how we should be thinking about the music industry, the tech industry, how we can work together and where everything is going. We towards the end we talk about generative AI and how he's thinking about working with AI, being respectful of the artists and how he thinks it can enhance an artist's career and focusing both on the users, the fan base, and the artists. And we really talk about how he thinks it can help bring artists and fans together. Now, YouTube, specifically YouTube Music, has been laser focused on visual storytelling, and he kind of talks about how he fell in love with music and pulling out a vinyl record and all of that stuff, and then kind of using that framework for what they're focusing on at YouTube. If you're not focusing or prioritizing YouTube in your rollout of your music or with your fan connection and fan relationship, definitely think about YouTube. I mean, YouTube has over 2 billion users all over the world, over 125 million subscribers, paid subscribers. So much of the industry and so much of the conversation has been focused on streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music. And I don't think enough attention has been paid on YouTube, as powerful as it is, as wide reaching as it is, and all that it entails. So I really appreciated this conversation. I think you're going to really dig it. You can find all of us that make the show happen at Ari's Take on the socials. You can find me at Ari Hurston on Instagram. Of course, if you're listening to this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and we post all of our episodes here. But right now, if you wouldn't mind just pausing this and leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or however you're listening to this right now, leave us a comment on YouTube or Spotify. And visit aristeak.com and get on the email list. That's the best way for us to stay in touch with you. All right, let's kick into the show. Lyor Cohen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ari.
Absolutely. I appreciate you staying up late with us. So we're going to jump right in. We're coming up on YouTube's 20th anniversary. You've been with the company now almost half that time as global head of music. Before that, you were one of the most successful record execs of all time, leading companies like Island Def Jam, Warner Music Group, working with artists like Jay-Z, The Killers. The music industry and the tech industry have notoriously had a very contentious relationship. I'm curious kind of why you decided to jump over onto the other side, and what maybe how your thinking has evolved over the last 9 years or so, initially coming from the creative side, coming from the record side, and now seeing everything on the, I don't want to say opposite side, but the other side of the tech side of the music industry.
So first of all, I would really push back on the characterization of this conflict,
Okay.
and us versus them, or that feels more like clickbait than the reality of the situation, or at least the perspective
Okay.
of me. I've always been intrigued with change. I've always been, how should I say, love when there is grinding of the machinery and sparks flying. And I think the constant of the music industry is change.
Yeah.
And I would say that many people that have been part of the music industry actually don't enjoy change.
Right.
And so I think what you are referring to is when there has been this, like I said, constant change, radical change, that people were trying to defend a system that as opposed to potentially seeing this as an opportunity. Okay, so like, for example, the digital revolution,
Right.
right? Uh, you know, if one were to step back and to say, wait a second, I don't have to make music a luxury product, that it costs, $20 for a CD or an album. I don't have to have any obsolescence. I don't have to ship. I don't have to pay for real estate.
Right.
And all that money that I spent on this luxury product could actually accrete back to the artist and the songwriters and the general record labels and publishers ecosystem. I mean, that could have been viewed as a really powerful and good thing, no?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you talk about the digital revolution. Would you say that the music industry fumbled the digital revolution? I mean, they saw Napster coming. We knew that MP3s were coming. We knew all of this was coming. And it took Napster offering a completely free peer-to-peer service to kind of crumble the global recorded music industry to the point where they were forced to make change. And it seems like, why I say the contentious relationship, it seemed like the tech industry essentially forced the music industry away from change, like you said, that they didn't like.
I don't think the tech industry forced that change.
Okay.
I think the users, the fans forced that change.
Okay.
And that's the key. The key that I've learned having worked at Google and YouTube is that it's a user-first company.
Yeah.
And I struggle to understand that coming from the music industry to the point that I actually, in basically my first month, did a keynote speech at South by Southwest where I suggested that I was going to frustrate and seduce the user. And it absolutely blew the top off of the Gen meme at the internal Gen meme of Google. Like, who is responsible for hiring this clown that he would even suggest frustrating and seducing the user?
Right.
And it was a very traumatizing moment for me very early on. And it took a lot of patience and hand-holding and a lot of colleagues that I'm so grateful for that explained to me that following the user, listening to the user, will help shine the light of the opportunities. And so I would suggest it wasn't that tech forced anybody, but the user forced people. So and so back to change, right? If you're not willing to change, if you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. Bob Dylan did that, and he's not even in tech. So
I totally hear you, and listening to the user, there's validity to that, especially that we saw the user didn't want to pay $18 or $20 for a piece of plastic with one song on it back in the day. And so the users wanted this digital revolution. The users wanted a singles economy. The record industry didn't. And so, that's where I would argue the record industry did fumble that because they weren't listening to their users or their customers. However, if you only listen to the users, I mean, they're, the users or the fans or maybe even YouTube's users, if we really go there, they would argue that copyright shouldn't exist. Intellectual property doesn't mean anything. Everything should be free. And so how do you come to terms with that if that is what the users want, but we still have an industry built on copyright, and especially coming from music? How do you come to terms with that?
Well, I don't think you're right about that the user wants everything for free.
Okay.
On the contrary, I think if you take a look at, and by the way, I don't want to say whether the industry fumbled or not, because that would be hubris and Monday quarterbacking. I would like our industry to be more on our front foot. And in general, and now I'm going to tie it back to the user.
Yeah.
Actually, Ari, in the last 2 years, what was the biggest zeitgeist moments that you would say, not in politics or the world, but in entertainment? May I make the suggestion that it was the Taylor Swift tour?
Sure. Yeah,
And
one of the biggest tours
the
of all time.
Beyonce tour?
Yeah.
So does that fly in the face of you saying that the consumers want something for free? Because what I'm suggesting that if the consumers want everything for free, then you may not have the Taylor Swifts and the Beyoncés because they may decide to do something different that they could actually feed their families. So
Right.
You, you, we have to. The user wants stars. They want to have a community. You know, when you're a teenager and you're trying to find what tribe you want to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
The stoner tribe, the athletic tribe, the studious tribe. You typically rifle through some music that helps you narrow your tribe. That's at
Right.
least how I look at it. It's
Sure.
one of the good ways of narrowing and trying to create a path for who your community is.
Mm-hmm.
And I would suggest that music is critical in that. So it's hard to actually become an adult without having the soundtrack of your youth. And so I would suggest that the users don't want everything free.
Mm-hmm.
They actually want to love, fall in love,
Yes.
find their community, find the artist that they love,
Yep.
sing at the top of their lungs, be united in the joy of music,
Yeah.
and are willing to pay for it.
I love that. And I think you're absolutely right that fans, when they find the artists they love, the communities that they love, that tribe, they will pay to be part of that, and they will pay their artists. I think, which brings me to, not everybody starts off as a Taylor Swift or Beyonce with the biggest tours of all time.
How
Of
about
course,
this? Taylor Swift and Beyonce didn't start off as Taylor Swift and
of
Beyonce's.
course.
We need to support
yes.
The incubation artist development stages of the careers of these magnificent artists.
100%. How do you suggest that we do that, knowing the challenges of monetizing an audience over the internet, especially, I mean, with YouTube, with a couple billion users, how many of those users who may be in love with artists, but may not actually be financially supporting artists, or the money that maybe even the 100 some subscribers that pay for YouTube Premium, how that money trickles down or finds its way to these beginning emerging artists that really could depend on that money, but aren't really seeing the fruits of that fandom necessarily, because of how many entities that money is touching and people that are getting paid from that subscription fee.
Well, I think that's presumptuous.
Okay.
Your point, because what we have done, and feel very proud of what we've done, is that we have met the fan where they are. So those fans that cannot afford or unwilling to pay for a subscription, they pay with their eyeballs.
Advertising.
The presumption that it's free is wrong.
Right.
And they are extremely valued by us.
Okay.
Because they are, as can argue, one could argue, as significant as a fan as one that subscribes. One may be more capable of doing it than the other.
Okay.
And so that's first and foremost. I would say the next thing is that we're in over 100 countries. So we're a global platform. Okay. So you could build an audience anywhere in the world. Okay. We're in 80 languages, and there's a lot of innovation that's coming to whether you could sing a song, you're an English-speaking singer that may be able to translate in a very beautiful way to Portuguese or to Spanish or something like that. So, and we're also proud of the subscription business that we built.
Yeah.
So the subscription business is actually what I was referring to about being in 100 countries. So meeting the fans where they are is super important. Every day I wake up with two things in mind. How artists and songwriters can make more money, and how do fans and artists connect? Fame and fortune. That's what I wake up every day in pursuit of trying to make it, a world where there's more artists and songwriters that are capable of feeding their families, and a world where fans are excited about joining a community of people that love an artist and their music. I'm also in hot pursuit of not just breaking music or song, but breaking a artist's career.
Okay.
So that's really important to me, that it's rock, paper, scissors. Breaking an artist trumps breaking simply a song.
I appreciate you saying that, because I think the music industry has been so obsessed over the last 5-6 years or so, with these songs that pop off on TikTok, and then the record industry just like signs an artist based on a song, and then they get dropped before they even release an album. And it's this hamster wheel that the industry is going through. And I know that, you championed early on when you were at Warner, partnering with artists, the 360 deals, and something saying that I heard you say in an interview, you're going to sign fewer artists so you could partner with them, so then you could invest in the artist a little bit longer, so it didn't need to be the quick hit out of the gates making you money. Speak to that a little bit more now in the context of being at YouTube and what you're doing to kind of help launch artists' careers instead of just songs.
So again, with the understanding that we're in the constant state of change, busy being born.
Yeah.
My relationship with music was, I cracked open a piece of vinyl, put it on a turntable, rolled a joint on the sleeve, read the bylines, fantasized over some of the images. But I was basically a listener of music. That's my relationship with music. I believe that the kids want more. They actually want to participate with music. And so the notion of UGC, of
generated content,
I think is a very important, and it's also the thing about understanding the user. And so letting them participate with music is, I think, very, very important and valuable in an ecosystem. So what I mean by that is, when I was at a record store and I used to flip through the crates and I would touch something and pull it up, someone would tap my shoulder and say, "Wow, I see that you pulled out Tribe Called Quest. May I make a suggestion that you may know or not know, but there's an artist called De La Soul that you may like." And so I think that short form is a method of trying to discover new music, but I would like the consumption to be a much more nourishing experience where once one touches it, they could see a video, an interview, a performance, um, something that one could go deeper and have a deeper fan connection, where
Yes.
the artist could reveal more than they can in a
Yes.
flippant scrolling moment. And
Y-
so
uh,
that's just
sorry.
one example of many
Yeah.
of trying to create a more nourishing experience
Yeah.
that is more in tune with trying to build artist careers than just breaking songs.
Sure. No, I think that's really important. I mean, I think so much has been lost in the digital revolution, especially, starting with iTunes, where you're just looking at a window and you're clicking things to download and you have no other information. The liner notes were lost, the tactile sensation, all of that was lost. And in the streaming era, similarly, I don't think that Spotify or Apple Music, is really offering that holistic, full experience of why we all fell in love with music. Similarly, I remember in my era pulling the CDs and opening the liner notes and going through and reading through everything, every page of that, and sometimes there'd be a poster in there and putting that up and falling in love with music that way. So I do appreciate that YouTube has this deeper experience that fans can fall into, where we've really lost that when just kind of downloads and then into streaming directly.
Listen, the pendulum goes to its maximum distance and comes back.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so, I never subscribed to the math of data to rush to sign an artist that has been the fad of this whole TikTok uh, stuff that you referred to that didn't really go anywhere.
Right.
I think that there's so much more that one needs to do to prepare an artist for success. And the fuse in general needs to be much longer.
Mm,
Um, I don't know why it helps an artist to blow up and then have the opportunities open up to them to do interviews and everything, only to show that there's nothing behind that one moment that they had.
yeah.
So, um, just like a soccer player or a doctor or incredible professional,
Yeah.
there is an incubation period of learning, gestation, development, um, creative incubation that allows them to actually walk through the door when the door opens.
Yes.
And so I think that just, I said it at the City of Hope event that I was honored in, that nothing will trump quality and artist development.
Mm,
And I would like for people to not try to take a shortcut
mm,
and to actually enjoy the process of becoming an important artist than trying to skirt and cut through the clutter of going like this. And
yeah, I fully agree, and I appreciate that perspective. Uh, Unfortunately, I don't know how often that's really happening. I mean, I can't tell you how many major labels I've spoken to over the past few years that have fawned over various artists, young or new emerging artists, saying they're incredible, brilliant songs, brilliant voice, love their stage energy, everything. They have everything. They don't have the streams. They don't have the fan base. We can't touch them. And what you're talking about is kind of like the development. We're not seeing that, or at least I'm not seeing that in the industry, where the industry has been developing artists like they did 20, 30, 40 years ago. Are you
I disagree with that.
okay?
I think that that's a wild generalization.
Hmm.
When I look at Lola Young or Sam Fender, I'm blown away by the incubation period it's taken them to develop their craft and then be able to walk through those doors.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to, it's not black or white.
Okay.
Some people have received the memo, some people haven't. And there were always great record companies and poor record companies.
Sure.
And they ebbed and flowed. That's what made this industry so interesting.
Mm.
What I have seen that I would like somehow for the industry to come back to is tolerating and fertilizing the impresario. I think that we have lost, for some reason, during the consolidation period, the value of an impresario.
Mm.
The Ahmed Erdigans, the Chris Blackwells, it goes on and on and on. David Geffen's, irreverent people who loved their craft and music,
Yeah.
tolerated all sorts of bouncing neutrons, understood um, how difficult it is to choose a life of being an artist and a songwriter,
Yes.
mining and supporting the creative process. When I hear often that artists go into labels and the labels don't actually ask them to play the music, but they want more to hear about the number of subscribers or likes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think we have our most important player out of position, the artist.
Mm.
And I think it would behoove the industry to get them back into a more focused creative headspace where
Yes.
they're in the haystack looking for that needle.
Amen. I hope everybody gets that memo very soon. That's how we create a healthier music ecosystem and industry as a whole. I'm curious. Changing gears a little bit. Where YouTube Music and where you're kind of looking ahead of just what is to come. I mean, generative AI has really taken over every aspect of our world and business and lifestyle. And in music, we've seen people experimenting here and there. Of course, we've seen the lawsuits against some of these generative music AI companies like Suno and Udio and stuff like that. How is YouTube? How are you approaching how to work with generative AI or AI in general? And how are you approaching just this in general, working with, working against, working alongside? How are you looking at it right now?
So I think you need to split it into two different buckets. One, the support for the artists and songwriters in making their job more creative and easier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
where Gen AI can really be helpful.
Mhm.
And then what is a product that the users dig? And I don't think we've found, or anybody has found, a product that actually the users dig.
Mhm.
And it's going to take a lot of collaboration with our partners, the music industry.
Yeah.
Our superpower is our relationship and our partnership with the music industry. We have
Yes.
an enormous business with them, and they are the ones closest to the talent.
Mhm.
And we've worked very closely with them to create a sandbox or incubator, to just try and test things. And I think we need to encourage our partners to be more bold in the testing of what a product. Remember when UGC was a 4-letter word?
I
You
do
remember
remember
that?
that.
Well, it
Yes.
represents 30% of all the music industry's revenue now.
Incredible. Yeah.
So we need to find our 2.0 version that includes Gen AI. Remember I said that kids want to participate?
Yes.
Now, let me ask you a question. What if you, Ari, that loved Ice Cube, okay, and I, being your best friend, actually could put ourselves in the back seat of that lowrider cruising LA, you know, that song Good Day?
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That'd be pretty spectacular. I would personally do the with him holding the Dodgers World Series trophy in the passenger seat as he rode into Dodger Stadium, bumping the song. That would be my fantasy as a big Dodgers
Yeah.
fan. But I get absolutely. I'm right there with you.
So 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 we care deeply. You know,
Yeah.
we have a flywheel. Our flywheel is that we've the creator economy that includes artists
Yes.
are incredibly fertile in our ecosystem. It attracts the users to watch and dig them, which
Hmm.
attracts the advertisers, right?
Yes.
And it's this flywheel that's all supported by, making sure that our ecosystem has guardrails and there's a real trust and safety
Right.
layer there. So
Yes.
that's why working with them to find this uh, uh, potential product is important to experiment and work closely with our partners.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to see where you head with this. I know you've been at the forefront of change throughout the history of the music industry, and now as working with music and tech, and it doesn't need to be contentious. And I appreciate that the UGC is no longer a four-letter word, and that you have been working so closely with the industry now and all of the music partners to kind of bring the artist fan relationship closer together, closer now more than ever. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I have one final question that I ask everyone who comes on the show, and that is, what does it mean to you to make it in the new music business?
I think when you could actually feed your family
Hmm.
and have it be a durable seat in this industry, that would be an enormous gift to be able to say you've made it in this industry, is that you could actually feed your family and put your kids through school and be part of this beautiful industry.
Lyor Cohen, thank you so much. That was great. Today's episode was edited by Ari Davids with music by Grassroots District and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.